Okay, so next step is kind of the third part of three different parts, which we typically call with website or web application development is the front end. We have our HTML, which is the hypertext markup language, the content. We have our cascading style sheets, which are the visual style rules. And then the last part is the interaction. So how do we program or script some interactivity into the page so that the user can do something interesting or useful? So this is powered by something called JavaScript. So what we're going to do here is we're going to, just after the close of the paragraph tag, we're going to create a new line here. So we're still within the body of the page, but we're just after the rest of the content. We're going to create a new tag called a script tag. As soon as I create the start tag, of course, my code editor will generate that end of script tag, and that's fine. So I'll create a couple of empty lines there, and I'm going to type some code in between these two script tags. Now, similar to CSS, as soon as I enter in between these particular tags, I've kind of left the confines of HTML. So anything I type in here is no longer HTML, just like all the content inside the style tags is CSS. It's not HTML. Similarly, the content in between these two tags, the browser expects will be JavaScript in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to just add a little bit of interaction. And if we go back to the page, we're going to set this up so that when I click on the toaster, oops, lost the file. When I click on this toaster, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the user whether they like their how they like their toast done, and then I'm going to take that information and rewrite the text of this paragraph. So what we'll do here is we're going to first of all create a new variable to represent the toaster. So we say to do that in JavaScript, we use the keyword var. We'll add a space and we'll say var toaster is equal to, and notice how this is different now than when we're working with attributes and values. So in the HTML, the source is equal to, in this image element, the path to this image. Notice how there are no spaces around on either side of the equal sign. This is markup. This is HTML. This is not HTML. This is JavaScript. So we're now in a kind of a programming environment. So the formatting is a little different here. So we're going to create the variable toaster, and I'm going to attach or have that toaster represent the image tag up here, this picture of this this toaster. So how we do that is we say to the document dot, and then sort of like CSS, we have something called a query capital selector. So you have to use what we call camel case here. So query selector, and then in parentheses, which are the round brackets above the 9 and the 0, whoops, and then single quotes, I put a selector, just like I would in CSS. So what this does, it says the variable toaster will now represent in the document, we'll query the document, and we'll use the selector image to grab this thing here. Perfect. So we now have the toaster here. So next step here is now what we're going to do is we're going to also create a variable to represent this paragraph, because when they click on the toaster, I'm going to ask them how they want their toast done, and I'm going to then rewrite the text in this paragraph. So we'll say variable, or var, paragraph, or para for short, equal document dot query capital selector, and just kind of like our CSS, P. So just kind of like up here, we put a P for the selector and styled this document. We're going to query the page or the document And now para now represents this in the same way that toaster now represents this image here. Great. So that's step 1 and 2. The final thing is we need to now write a little bit of a function that handles someone clicking on the toaster here. And when they do that, we're going to do something. So this is how we do it. We say toaster, which is now this image element here, represented by this variable, toaster dot on click. So when the user clicks the toaster, we will do the following function. We create an open and close parentheses here. That's to accept any arguments, which we won't be passing it right now. And then we'll open up, kind of like CSS, a pair of braces, or curly brackets, we'll sometimes say. So open up the curly bracket, and then close the bracket here. And then inside, we now create a kind of an open and close structure here. I'm going to tab one stop in, and then inside here, I write the things that will happen when the visitor clicks the toaster. And the first thing I want to do is capture, let's say, create another variable, var setting. This will represent the setting on the toaster, so light, medium, or dark is equal to, and we'll use a built-in function called prompt, and the prompt will output, create a prompt alert for the user, and we'll type in here, do you prefer light, medium, or dark toast? And at the end of the line, I put a semicolon, sort of like CSS, I guess. So what we'll do is this prompt will appear on the screen when they click the toaster, and whatever they type into that prompt box will then be represented by the variable setting. So that the variable setting will hold that, what they typed. And then what I do is I'm going to grab that. So I'm going to grab whatever they type, and I'm going to assign it. I'm going to rewrite this paragraph. So now we say para dot text capital content. We're going to use, watch this as a uppercase C. It's called camel case, is equal to, and we'll rewrite the paragraph. We'll say the toaster is set to space, and then we'll close the quotes there. And then I'll use something called a concatenator, and that's a kind of a fancy word for a symbol to kind of glue things together. So I'll use the plus symbol, plus, and then I'm going to say plus setting, and that's what the user types in this box here, plus setting, and then I'll use the concatenator there, create a new string, and then close the paragraph with a full stop for good grammar and close it. So to just provide a bit of an overview of what we've done, we've assigned the image to a variable called toaster, so we can refer to it as toaster. We've assigned this paragraph to a variable called para, so we can talk about that. And then the toaster, when they click this image, will run the following function. It will prompt the user to type something. We'll capture whatever they typed in the variable setting, and then I will rewrite the text content of this paragraph up here. I will rewrite this to read the toaster is set to whatever they typed. Okay, so that in blue here is the JavaScript that I have added to this simple HTML page. So I'll go File, Save, and we'll head over to the browser window. I have to reload the page to now include the code that I've added. Click on the toaster, and the page says, do you prefer light, medium, or dark toast? I like medium. Hit OK. And now the paragraph is rewritten in response to that prompt. So now you can see there's basically 3 layers to the front end, to a web page or web application. Is the HTML, which is the data, just the kind of the content, the text and the images. There's the CSS, which is the cascading style sheets, the visual style rules that govern how those are to appear on the page. And then there's the script, the interactive layer, which is run by JavaScript, which controls page logic and adds some sort of interactivity. So allows then the page to become an application. Well, this is a rather simple demonstration, but you know, sophisticated enough to show you a few things how we can interact with these simple elements. So if you're getting some strange errors or it's not working, you can right-click on the page. This is Chrome, and I can hit Inspect. And if you go to something called the console here, this will output the errors if there's any kind of syntax errors in your page. So let's just say that I made a spelling error here on line 27. And then when I reload the page, and you'll see here that the function doesn't work, the page doesn't work, but the console here, it indicates an error. Document.querySelector is not a function. So on line 27, I head over here using the line numbers for my code, and I can look here. All right, there's a problem here. And oh, there it is. So add that in there. File save. Reload the page. The error's gone, and there we go. Yeah, another thing is, you know, if we wanted to somehow encourage the user to click the toaster, so there's no indication here that the user should click the toaster, we can even head back here and say to our, in our CSS, we can change the cursor to a pointer. So inject this style rule quickly into the style sheet after our H1 but before the P. It doesn't need to be in this order. It doesn't necessarily, you know, this image rule could be after the P if you want. So grab the image selector, which captures this, and says the cursor, when you mouse over it, will turn into a pointer, which is the little finger, which of course would encourage some degree of, I'll refresh the page, and that encourages the user, obviously, to do something. There you go. So I hope you've enjoyed that quick little foray into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Onwards.